Hi, welcome to another dose of virtual vitamin Z. My name is Stephen, and I'm the curator of humane education for the Detroit Zoological Society. And I know that at this time of year, as the temperature starts to get colder and as the sun starts to set sooner, a lot of us might have a tendency to want to spend more time inside. But I have some good news. Just because we're spending more time inside doesn't mean that we can't still practice our humane skills and practice being humane individuals. And for today's lesson, I want to share some tips on one way that we can do that. So today's lesson is called the Humane Tip of the Week, and it's focused on hosting a virtual humane movie night. Now, I've thought about planning my own humane movie night, and I've identified a few steps that we can follow to do that. Now, the first one might seem obvious is we have to choose a humane movie. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what does it mean? What does it mean for a movie to be humane? Well, when I say humane movie, I'm not necessarily referring to either a documentary or a feature film. It can be either or both. It can actually also be something like a webinar, anything that you think you would be interested in watching with a group of friends or family members. And the humane part of it is that it is something that inspires us to reflect on our connections with other animals in the environment and to take actions to help them. So that's what it means to choose a humane movie. And then finding the movie, I'll share some ways that we can find a movie and make themed snacks, but I also want to talk about why a virtual humane movie night. Well, right now, especially in this context right now, I know that we're all trying to make sure that we're staying safe. And one great way to stay safe is to not go out if not necessary. The good news is that there are a lot of virtual platforms that we can use to replicate the experience of an in-person movie night. So just because we might be practicing social distancing and staying at home doesn't mean we can't have a movie night. So that's what the virtual part of the humane movie night means. And then finally, at the end, we'll lead a discussion about this movie. So let me move back and start with step one, choosing a humane movie. So maybe you've heard about a film or a documentary or even a webinar that you really want to watch. And so you've already completed this step. That's great. You can go ahead and move on to step two. But say that you want to do something like host a humane movie night, but you don't really know where to start. Well, there are a lot of great resources that you can use to choose a humane movie. One of those resources, or actually several of those resources, are the Institute for Humane Education's issues guides. Now, if you go to this link under that bullet point, you'll be able to search by different topics. So maybe you want to watch a movie about animal protection, or maybe you want to watch a movie about climate change. You can go to their issue guides, and those issue guides includes books, lessons, but also things like feature films and documentaries. And so that's a great way to expose yourself to some of these different resources out there and choose something that seems interesting to you and that you think will be interesting to your friends too. Another great resource that I actually just recently discovered is Common Sense Media's movie lists. Now, what these are is these are curated lists of movies that are really focused on families. And you can search them not only by topic, but also by age or developmental level. And I checked out some of those lists. I was in particular interested in documentaries about animals and the environment and food, given that I wanted to show some examples of a humane movie night. And here's what I ended up finding. So I went to their list that they called their list of best documentaries. And there were a lot of great documentaries on there, some that might seem more or less relevant to humane education. But one that stood out to me was this one in the middle here called Forks Over Knives. And the description is, it's an engaging documentary that promotes a vegan diet or a plant-based diet in a non-judgmental way. And so I thought, you know what, that's pretty cool. That's something that I want to check out. And the other cool thing here is that I could click and read more about it. I could also click on Get It Now, and it would actually lead us directly into step two. So speaking of step two, let's go there next. So now that you've chosen a documentary, in my case, it's Forks Over Knives, but maybe you chose a different documentary. The next challenge or next opportunity is to actually find that documentary in a format that you can stream virtually. And there are a lot of places you can do this. I know a lot of people, when they think about streaming movies, might immediately think of paid streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and other services. And as you can see in the third bullet point, I did include those. However, there are some other resources you might not think of. Moving up to the second bullet point, there are some streaming services that are actually available for free. Now, some of them might make you watch ads, which might be a little frustrating. But some of these resources, for example, YouTube, you can actually find some free documentaries on YouTube. And then finally, the one that I really want to emphasize here is your local library. Even if you don't want to go to your local library has its own virtual presence. And a lot of libraries have access to streaming services. So as long as you have a free library card, you can enter your library card information on their website, sign up for one of these virtual streaming services, and actually virtually borrow documentaries or other movies, things like that. So that's what I did. I went to my local library's website and found that I could borrow this documentary, which means I could get it for free, which was pretty cool. And something that, you know, a little while ago I wasn't aware of. I didn't realize that libraries had such expansive virtual presences too. All right, so no movie night is complete without some themed snacks. And I got some ideas for making themed snacks. Now, themed snacks, of course, depends upon choosing the movie first. And in this case, Forks Over Knives, it's a movie about encouraging people to eat plant-based diets. So I could have gone on to Google or another search engine and searched for some recipes for plant-based snacks. Also, I was thinking back and I realized that a lot of our virtual vitamin Z lessons that we've been sharing over the past months have included snacks, things like cauliflower hot wings, or things like iceberg popsicles, which maybe isn't the best thing in the winter, but if you were watching a documentary about something cold, then maybe they would be fitting. And then I actually got really fortunate because in my case, the documentary, had a companion website, since it was focused on food, that listed some really cool recipes to try. And so I found one of those for herbed hummus. And I love hummus. I've never tried making it in this way before though, so I thought that it might be a perfect snack. So I was able to follow that recipe and figure it out. All right, moving on to step 4. Now this is the one that probably a lot of you are, okay, I know how to do a movie night, but how do we do this virtually? And again, fortunately, there are some great resources to help us do this. Some of these platforms, one of them is called Cast, and there are platforms that actually allow people to have virtual watch parties. So they're specifically designed for things like a virtual movie night. But even if, say, maybe they seem a little bit too complex or complicated for you, or maybe for some of your friends or family members, there are other options too. Some of the streaming services that I mentioned earlier actually offer their own virtual watch platforms. So when you find a documentary or other movie on them, you can click a button that allows you to start a watch party and invite friends. So that's always a great option. But there's also some even more low-key or low-tech options, like just getting together with some family or friends on a Zoom call. And then, especially if the documentary is freely available, like the one I found is, all saying, all right, let's go ahead and all click start together. We'll watch the documentary on one screen or on one part of the screen, and then talk with each other on the other. So as long as you're feeling proficient with something like Zoom or another video conferencing platform, that's always a great option too. So I'm trying to show that it doesn't take a lot to have a virtual movie night. And then finally, this part is really important. Oh, and so in my case, I decided I'm just, I have weekly talks with my family and friends on Zoom. And so I said, you know what, let's just make it low key. Let's do it on Zoom. And then we will, all decide to watch the documentary together, or maybe we'll watch it and then talk about it afterwards. But the 5th step is really important here for us as humane individuals and humane educators, because it's one thing to have an experience like watching a movie a film, a documentary, something like that. It's another thing to reflect on that experience and how it connects with us and how we can use that experience to go out and help others. And so I wanted to close by giving you some topics for leading a discussion about the movie after you've watched it and enjoyed your themed movie snacks and things like that. And one topic is just, it's always a great idea to start with some general impressions of the movie because not everybody has the same experience watching a movie. Some people might love it, some other people might be confused or might have questions. So it's always good to start by seeing where everybody's at. Another great topic is thinking about connections between the movie and your lives. And that's something that might not be obvious from the movie, and it might take some work. And that's why it's great to have some people to talk with, because it'll give you a chance to work together to build this understanding. And then, as you know, here at the DZS and through our Berman Academy for Humane Education, we help people help animals. So it's really important to us to think about what actions you can take in response to an experience, in this case, a movie, to help animals in the environment and other people. And then finally, as humane educators, what are some ways that you can share this movie experience with other people? So for this documentary, I wrote down a brief list. What were your general impressions of forks over knives? What's been your experience in incorporating more plant-based meals into your diet? And that might lead to its own follow-up discussion about obstacles people face, great recipes they've had, things like that. Number 3, what are 3 concrete steps you can take to incorporate more plant-based meals into your diet? And as you think about taking actions here, it's really important to remember that small steps matter. Small steps count, especially if they're small steps that are taken by multiple people over time. So you don't need, don't feel like you need to make drastic changes to your life right away in order to take actions to help. And then finally, think about, who else would want to see this? Who else would you like to introduce to this documentary? So I hope that that was helpful in sharing some ways that you can, while staying indoors and staying socially distanced, host your own virtual humane movie night. And as a reminder, this is really rooted in the DZS and our Berman Academy for Humane Education, where we have the mission of helping people help animals. And one way we do that is through these humane tips. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoy your humane movie night. And if you do decide on a particular movie, I would love it if you all could share it in the comments so we can all learn together as a virtual community some of the great resources that are out there to help us feel inspired and feel able to take action to help. So again, thanks so much for joining me. For more virtual vitamin Z, be sure to check out the Detroit Zoo's website at detroitzoo.org. Until then, stay safe and have a great day. Bye.